we're going to look at rounding to significant figures. So when we round significant figures, it's different to rounding to decimal places. What we're looking for is starting to count from the left hand side. So what's the most significant? So if you were told you could have £5,269 and you could have either £5,000, £200, £60 or £9, which one would be the most significant to you? Well, I believe you would want the 5,000. So when we're talking about significant figures, we're talking about the most significant. So in this one, the first digit that we get to that is not 0 is the first significant figure. So when we're rounding to significant figures, in this case, it's this first digit, which is the thousands. So we're going to round to the nearest thousand. Now we have a 2 next to it. So the nearest thousand is 5,000, not 6, because it hasn't got a number next to it that is 5 or more. So this rounds to 5,000. Now when we're talking about two significant figures, we count 1, 2, that's the second significant. So in this case, we are rounding to the hundreds. So we have a 5 and then it's the hundreds that are rounding. So we have a 6 next to the 2, which means that this number is 5 or more, which means that this changes to a 3. So to two significant figures, it's 5,300. In the last one, this is the third significant figure. So we're rounding to the hundreds. So we have 5, 2. Now we need to decide if that's a 6 or a 7. By looking at this number, it's 5 or more. So this one changes to a 7. So 5, 2, 7, 0. Notice how the numbers are still 4 digits long. Okay. The only thing that has changed is that in this case we have 1 digit and then everything else is zeros. In this one, two significant figures, we have 2 digits and then zeros, 3 digits and then a 0. Okay, moving on to the next one. So again, we're looking for the first non-zero digit, which is this. So we're rounding to the units. It has a 0 next to it. That means that this just rounds to 1. Okay. Second significant figure, we're rounding to the first decimal place. So it's going to be 1 point something. Now is it 1.0 or is it 1.1? We look at the 3 to tell us whether it's 1.1 or 1.0. The 3 is 4 or less, so this stays as a 0. We do have to put the 0 in because it needs to be 2 significant figures, so 2 digits long. And then the last one, this is the third significant. So again, we need 3 digits, so 1.0, and then we have to decide whether the 3 stays as a 3 or moves up to a 4 by looking at this digit next to it. This is 5 or more, so this moves up to a 4. And moving on to the last one. Now, this is important. We don't start counting until we get to the first non-zero digit, which appears when we get to the 5. So it's going to be 0.0, and then we need to decide if this 5 stays as a 5 or changes to a 6 by looking at this number next to it, which is a 9, which is 5 or more. So this moves to a 6. Next one, two significant figures. So we're moving on to the second digit that's not 0, which is the 9. So it's going to be 0.05, and then we need to decide if this stays as a 9 or turns everything into 0.060. If this 9 had to move up 1, it would become 0.060. It has a 1 next to it, which means that this actually stays as a 9 because the 1 is 4 or less. So it's 0.059. And the final one, 3 significant figures. The third digit that's not 0, so 0.059. Then we need to decide if this 1 stays as a 1 or moves to a 2 by looking at the digit next to it, which is a 3, which is 4 or less. So this stays as a 1.